We're talking about fat loss from the audience can handle a nice technical chat about this, Bill. But it isn't simply just a case of calories in, calories out. Can you just give us a slightly better overview? And I realize we're limited for time here, but just an idea of what's involved and the nuances that are involved.
Yeah, so when we use the term fat loss, what we mean is we're trying to take fat that's currently stored in our body, in adipose tissue or fat cells, and we're trying to get that into the atmosphere, essentially. So what do I mean by that? So our adipose tissues store triglycerides, which is a bunch of carbon and hydrogen bonds. And these carbon-hydrogen bonds, they store energy. And when we have excess energy in the body, it stores it as body fat. So essentially what we're doing, think of a balloon. We're trying to shrink the size of a balloon. And the lesson there is we're trying to shrink the size of our fat cells. So we don't really eliminate fat cells, we reduce the size of them. And this is a two-step process. First of all, we have to liberate the fat that's in our fat cells. So these carbon and hydrogens. So this is conveniently stored in a triglyceride. And I always use this as an example. You put up this. We have a backbone, and we have 1, 2, 3 fatty acids that's currently in my fat cells, and I don't want them there. I want to breathe out all of this energy that's stored here so that my fat cells get smaller. So there's 2 steps to this. The first one is we have to get this triglyceride out of the fat cell so that it has the capability to be burned for energy. So this first step is called lipolysis. And lipolysis is basically taking off 1, taking off 2, and then taking off the 3 fatty acids from this glycerol backbone. And now when we've done this, these fatty acids make their way to the blood, and now they're floating in the blood, and they're waiting to be burned for energy. And the best way to do this, the way that you guarantee that you will burn these fatty acids for energy, because if you don't burn them for energy, they'll turn right back around, and the term is called Reesterification. They'll turn right back around and just resynthesize into your fat cell into another and new triglyceride. So we call that a futile cycle. But if we're in a caloric deficit, or if we are physically active, both of those, physical activity is the best fat loss stimulus on the planet. Now, it doesn't mean it's easier than dieting, but a caloric deficit and physical activity kind of like pull these fatty acids into the active tissues, and I always use muscle as our example, where now that they're liberated, they can be burned or technically oxidized for energy. And essentially what that is, if you want to get technical, it's beta oxidation is the term in muscle, and this occurs in the mitochondria, where if we need energy, what we will do is we have these fatty acids, these carbon and hydrogen bonds, and they're about 18 carbon lengths long. They'll go into the mitochondria, and it will chop them up. And as in the process of chopping them up and taking off electrons and transferring them to the electron transport chain, all of these things are essentially capturing the energy that was stored in these bonds that can now be used to fuel the body's systems in a caloric deficit or to fuel our exercise sessions. So whether we're on the football field or in the weight room, wherever we're exercising, we now have used that energy to fuel either physiological functions, or to fuel the exercise and training session. And then ultimately, these carbons that we used to extract this energy, we breathe off as carbon dioxide. And what was once in our fat cells is now in the environment. So there's kind of a general overview of the physiology of fat loss.